I won't stand for this anymore. I will sue you. Meri Brown's voice boomed across the courtroom, echoing off the high ceilings and freezing everyone solid. The shocking ferocity of her announcement left the room stunned. Flashbulbs exploded like lightning. As cameras snapped every micro-expression, every bead of sweat, and every moment of incredulity on family members, attorneys, and spectators' faces. Meri had endured years of suffering in silence, swallowing heartbreak upon heartbreak, subject to emotional deprivation and secrecy in the Brown family. But today the tables had been turned. Today, she was not the submissive, long-suffering wife who had struggled to hold together a complicated family system. Today, she was a woman asserting her strength. Her eyes sparkled with unshed tears, red and sore from all the sleepless nights spent fretting, fearing, and despondent. She had worked years at keeping her cool, always smiling for the cameras, presenting a demeanor of peace and acceptance that she didn't really feel within. Behind the facade in front of the cameras, though, her life had been a whirlwind of confusion and despair. She had always wondered why her emotions didn't count so much, second-guessed herself, and bore the suffocating brunt of being emotionally pushed aside. The lies she had uncovered were more than just words. They were a betrayal of trust, a fracture in the very foundation of her life. Meri's thoughts raced as she scanned the courtroom. She could see the mixed expressions on her family's faces: shock, disbelief, and in some cases guilt. Each look seemed to cut through her heart, yet it also fueled her determination. The years of neglect, dismissal, and emotional manipulation had taught her anything. She could no longer wait for someone else to see her pain. If she wanted justice, if she wanted respect, if she wanted the truth, she was going to have to fight for it herself. She took a deep breath, attempting to calm her quivering hands as she got ready to confront Kody Brown, her husband of all those years. The man who had promised her love and companionship now sat opposite the courtroom, his back rigid, his jaw clenched, and his eyes moving frantically around the room. Kody had underestimated her for far too long. The submissive, quiet wife he had so readily dismissed was now standing her ground, her dignity unbroken, and her resolve unshakable. Each lie, each betrayal, and each lapse of emotional neglect had hardened her into someone who could no longer be silenced. The courtroom itself appeared to throb with tension. The air was heavy, verging on stifling, as if the room itself was holding its breath. Lawyers pushed papers nervously, their hushed conversations interrupted by the snapping of cameras and the soft thrum of nervous murmurs from family members. Even the judge, who had witnessed thousands of cases play out, appeared enthralled by the sheer emotion pouring from Meri. This was not a legal trial. It was an encounter of profound inner truth, a clash of love, deception, and bravery. Meri's mind drifted back to the countless nights she had spent crying silently in her bedroom, the tears soaking her pillow as she questioned her worth and her place in the family. She remembered feeling invisible, as though her emotions, sacrifices, and dreams were constantly minimized or ignored. The soft dismissals, the whispered talk in back rooms, the half-truths and bald-faced lies, all of it had accumulated like water behind a dam within her, and now that dam had burst. Her lawsuit was not about legal redress. It was an exercise in self-respect, a statement that she had the right to be noticed, to be heard, to be appreciated. As she gazed at Kody, her mind rewound scenes of betrayal that had pierced her to the very center. There were secret conversations in the dead of night she had overheard, secrets she had discovered, and innumerable moments when her emotions were mocked. Every recollection fueled a swirl of sadness and anger, a cocktail that left her shaking but determined. No longer was the courtroom merely a setting of law. It was a platform for a woman claiming back her life. Meri could hear her heart pounding, the adrenaline commingling with her rage and sorrow. She had practiced these words over and over again, but no amount of rehearsal was able to encapsulate the feelings churning inside her. She had envisioned this moment hundreds of times, entering the courthouse, facing her family, and finally articulating the truth that had been locked within her for so long. Now that imagined moment had become reality, and it was far more intense, far more powerful than she had ever anticipated. Her lawyer handed her the folder containing the evidence, and Meri's eyes scanned the documents one more time. Emails, text messages, financial records, and personal notes, all of them painted a picture of deception and manipulation that Kody had tried to hide. Every page reaffirmed her belief. She was not overreacting. She was not being melodramatic, and she was sure as heck not fantasizing the betrayal. These were things concrete and irrefutable, and they were her defense in this battle of emotions. The spectators in the courtroom couldn't help but feel the weight of the moment. Friends, family, and even strangers could sense that this wasn't just a lawsuit. It was a reckoning. Meri's quiet strength and emotional vulnerability combined to create an almost magnetic presence. Every eye was on her as she took a deep breath, preparing to speak words that would resonate far beyond the walls of the courtroom. Kody shifted in his seat again, fidgeting as if the gravity of Meri's declaration were physically weighing him down. He had always thought that time, patience, and charm could smooth over any problem, but he now faced a woman who had grown stronger through every disappointment, every heartbreak, and every moment of doubt. She was no longer a passive participant in the family drama. She was a force, a storm of truth and emotion ready to demand accountability. Meri's voice, though trembling slightly, carried a newfound authority. "I have been patient for far too long," she began, her words deliberate, each one striking like a hammer. "I have endured lies, betrayal, and endless manipulation. I have attempted to forgive, to keep calm, and to keep this family together, but I cannot anymore. I will not be ignored. I will not be silenced. I am here to demand the respect, honesty, and justice I deserve." The room was quiet again, each listener holding their breath for her next word. Family members looked at one another, some with shame, others with shock, and a few with a sense of fear. For the first time, the power structure of the Brown family seemed to change before their very eyes. The subdued woman who had been ignored and belittled was now in charge, demanding attention and respect. Meri stood for a moment, allowing the gravity of what she said to settle. The silence was dense, almost crushing, but she did not waver. She had hit rock bottom, and there was no return. Every cell in her body insisted that she go on, that she present her argument in its entirety, that she be an example of strength, of bravery, of the refusal to be satisfied with anything less than truth. She gazed at Kody for the final time, her eyes unflinching. The years of silence, swallowed pain, ignored feelings, and unrecognized sacrifices had all led to this moment. "This is bigger than me," she went on, her voice more firm now. "This is about honesty, openness, and respect. It is about rising up when you are pushed to the limit and stopping being silenced any further. I am here, I am ready, and I will fight for what is mine." A faint shiver ran through the courtroom, the collective tension almost palpable. The cameras continued to click, the whispers of onlookers growing louder, and the legal teams prepared for what promised to be an intense and unprecedented confrontation. Meri's declaration had set the stage for a legal and emotional battle that no one could ignore, and everyone in the room knew that this was just the beginning. This was more than just a lawsuit to Meri, it was the taking back of her life. Each tear she had cried, each night she had spent losing sleep, each time she had felt invisible was worth it for this moment. And as the courtroom held its breath, she at last felt a power she never knew she possessed. The power to tell her own truth, to call for accountability, and to stand up for herself in the face of all the pain and deception inflicted upon her over the past years. This was the moment that would change everything. The tension-filled air in the courtroom filled with anticipation as Meri Brown's attorney started introducing the first evidence. Every rustle of paper, every click of a camera shutter, felt amplified. Meri's heart raced, not from fear, but from a fierce sense of purpose. She had waited years for this moment, a chance to reveal the secrets that had been kept from her, the lies that had undermined her life, and the betrayals that had broken her trust. The first set of documents laid bare the hidden financial records that Kody had kept secret. Meri's eyes scanned the pages, each line of numbers and transactions a damning reminder of the manipulation she had endured. She remembered nights of confusion, trying to piece together small inconsistencies, hoping she was wrong, but the evidence was undeniable. The reality that she had suspected for years was now at her fingertips, and now it was laid bare for the whole world to witness. Then came the messages. text messages, emails, and hidden notes that conveyed the emotional betrayals she had suffered. Every message was a tale of deception and secrecy, a tale in which her emotions had been belittled, her trust shattered, and her voice silenced. As the lawyer read them out loud, the courtroom responded. Gasps, murmurs, and whispers filled the room like fire. Even the judge leaned forward, eyebrows furrowed, listening to every statement. Meri could sense a roller coaster of emotions, hurt, anger, and lastly vindication. These words were evidence enough that she had not been dreaming up the manipulation. She had been rejected, belittled, and hurt, but no more. Each message acknowledged what her heart had sensed. She deserved respect, honesty, and justice. Family members exchanged nervous glances, some avoiding eye contact, others unable to hide their unease. Kody shifted uncomfortably in his chair, the weight of the evidence pressing down on him like a physical force. For years he had relied on charm, distraction, and half-truths to maintain control. But Meri's case left no room for evasion. Every lie, every omission, every hidden truth was now on full display, and the entire family had to confront it. Meri's lawyer presented witnesses next, individuals who had observed the family dynamics firsthand, offering accounts of conversations and actions that corroborated Meri's claims. The courtroom became a tapestry of voices, each testimony adding depth and weight to the narrative of betrayal. The witnesses painted a vivid picture. A woman forced to navigate a labyrinth of secrecy, deception, and emotional neglect, all while maintaining a public facade of calm and acceptance. All the while, Meri remained calm, even while her heart pounded with a fierce energy. She understood this exposure was deserved. She wasn't out to get revenge, she was out to get truth. She desired the court, the family, and the world to see the reality she had endured for years. A reality marked by betrayal and emotional manipulation. A reality that needed to be seen and that needed justice. The cameras picked up all the nuance, the covert glances, the fists clenched tightly, the silent tears. The drama taking place in that courtroom was not merely a legal fight, it was an emotional one, gut-wrenching and real. Audiences could feel how deeply Meri hurt and how much courage she took, knowing this was about something more than affidavits or evidence. This was about reclaiming her life. As the morning session continued, tension mounted. Kody's defense team tried to counter the evidence, attempting to cast doubt on the documents and testimonies. But Meri's case was airtight. Each attempt to deflect or minimize the truth was met with calm, precise rebuttals. Every lie was challenged, every manipulation confronted. Meri was no longer a passive participant. She was a formidable presence in the courtroom, commanding attention and respect with every word. Meri experienced a rush of vindication as the judge stepped back to consider the evidence. The heaviness of years of doubt and betrayal lessened a little. At last she felt that the world was finally paying attention to her reality, acknowledging her hurt, and admiring her bravery. The courtroom was not merely an arena of law, it was a stage for the truth, where justice was not a notion but something real she could insist on. As the session came to an end, the whispers and murmurs continued. Everyone in the room realized that the secrets had tipped the power balance. Meri had demonstrated that she could no longer be dismissed, ignored, or silenced. She had commandeered her narrative, and with it she had altered the dynamics of the family for all time. Returning to her seat, Meri was numb with exhaustion and elation. The psychological burden of bringing years of deceit into the light was heavy, but freeing. She had transformed pain into power, sorrow into determination. The secrets were out, and there was no turning back. The court had seen her strength, and the Brown family would never look at her again. Even as Kody shied away from her eyes, Meri exuded confidence. The reserved, tearful woman once ignored was now a force of nature who stood firm against lies and asked for justice. She had commenced taking the most important initial steps toward the recovery of her life, demonstrating that even in adverse situations, strength and truth could conquer. By the end of Section 2, the foundation of Meri's case had been laid, undeniable evidence, powerful testimony, and a clear message that she would no longer tolerate betrayal or secrecy. The courtroom buzzed with anticipation for the next stage, the emotional showdown that would test the limits of loyalty, love, and courage. Meri had set the stage, and everyone knew that what came next could change everything. The courtroom seemed to be a war zone of emotion. Each glance, each whisper, each movement seemed amplified, imbued with the raw power of conflict. Meri Brown's heart was racing like a drum as she got ready to confront not only the evidence, but the emotional truth she had been evading for so many years. This wasn't a legal case, it was a reckoning, a confrontation of years of lies, heartache, and betrayal. The lawyer called the first witness, a close friend who had observed the family dynamics over the years. Their testimony was calm, factual, and unwavering, yet each word struck like lightning. They described moments where Mary's pain had been dismissed, times when her opinions were ignored, and countless instances of manipulation that she had endured silently. The courtroom seemed to hold its breath, absorbing every detail. For Meri to have her experiences confirmed aloud was both painful and empowering. Next, Kody's turn came to react. He shifted uncomfortably in his seat, trying to look relaxed, but the tension in his jaw gave him away. His words were deliberate, chosen carefully, but they could not cover up the discomfort etched on his face. Meri observed him intently, marking each micro-expression, each hesitation. For years she had let his charm and evasiveness befuddle her, but now she could see the facade for what it was. She was no longer the silent woman who had suffered. She was a force requiring recognition. Meri breathed deeply and said, her voice calm but laced with emotion, I have spent years being invisible in my own household. I have suffered betrayal, manipulation, and secrecy, all while trying to maintain our family unit. But not anymore. I am here today taking back my voice, my dignity, and my life. The courtroom responded. Some gasped, some whispered, and a few squirmed uncomfortably in their seats. The force of her words rang through the room. This wasn't about legal rights. It was about a woman refusing to be diminished in a world that had often sought to belittle her. Kody's defense tried to interject, attempting to downplay the testimony, to frame Mary's words as exaggerated or emotional. But she was prepared. Each claim he made was countered with precision, backed by evidence, witnesses, and years of personal experience. The courtroom became a chessboard of strategies, each side maneuvering for advantage. But Meri had a secret weapon, her unshakable resolve. There was high emotion as Meri spoke of personal moments of pain, moments when she had felt betrayed by things done without her knowing, conversations kept from her, and decisions that influenced her life without consulting her. Her voice quivered at times, but never cracked. The audience was able to sense the gravity of her words, knowing that each tear was for years of bottled pain and unspoken sacrifice. For Kody, this was a turning point. The man who had long maintained control over the family narrative realized that Mary's courage could no longer be contained. She wasn't asking for permission to speak. She was demanding to be heard. Her emotional strength had shifted the power dynamic, and the courtroom could feel it. As more witnesses were called, the tension intensified. Friends, family members, and even former advisors shared insights that supported Mary's claims. Each testimony chipped away at the defenses Kody had carefully constructed, leaving him increasingly vulnerable. The courtroom was alive with energy, a mix of anticipation, disbelief, and emotional intensity. Meri did not blink. Her eyes passed over the room, taking in the family faces, the judge, and the onlookers, and she felt a rush of strength. This was not just about winning a lawsuit anymore. It was about demonstrating that she would endure years of trust broken and emerge unbroken. Her inner struggle, once concealed beneath quiet pain, was now on display for everyone to see. The attorney produced yet another evidence, a chain of direct messages that revealed lies and emotional abandonment. The room responded automatically. Some gasped, others looked at each other with discomfort. Kody's explanations and justifications failed. For all the denials, there was evidence. For all the deflection of blame, the truth held. Meri experienced a sense of relief and determination. Relief that the truth was now revealed, and determination that she would keep fighting until justice was complete. She understood that this courtroom was not merely a location, it was a stage for change. Here she was able to face her trauma, hold accountable the people who hurt her, and start the healing process of regaining her life. As the session went on, the emotional intensity mounted. Meri shared moments of vulnerability, her fears, her heartbreak, and the loneliness that had followed her journey. But with the vulnerability was unassailable strength. She had taken years of silence and made it into action. She had transformed grief into power and tears into determination. The crowd sensed it. Each gasp, each whisper, Each wordless nod was a testament to the power of her words. It was not merely a court drama. It was an account of resilience, bravery, and the unrelenting quest for truth. With Section 3, Meri had not only laid out her case with clarity and evidence, but had also demonstrated the depth of her inner fortitude. The courtroom had seen the reserved woman unveiled as a strong force, able to confront betrayal, meet pain straight on, and fight for justice. The scene was now set for the next act, the fierce confrontation and the critical turning point that would rewrite her life and position in the family. The courtroom was charged. Every glance, every murmur, every rustle of papers was magnified by the gravity of the moment. Hours of testimony, evidence, and heart-rending admissions had passed, and the mood had changed. Meri Brown was no longer a mere actor in the judicial process. She was the undisputed force to be reckoned with in the room. Kody Brown sat across from her, his usual composure cracking under the pressure. The confident, charming man who had navigated family dynamics for years now faced a reality he couldn't control. Meri's courage and clarity. Every lie that had gone unnoticed, every secret that had been hidden, every betrayal that had been swept under the rug, was now on full display. He shifted uneasily, realizing that this confrontation was unlike any he had faced before. Meri's lawyer presented the final pieces of evidence: financial records, text messages, and personal notes that revealed years of manipulation and secrecy. The judge examined each document carefully, his eyes narrowing as he absorbed the weight of the truth. It was undeniable. Meri's claims were backed by solid, irrefutable proof. As the lawyer summarized the evidence, Meri's eyes locked on Kody. She could feel the tension radiating off him, the discomfort, the fear. For years she had been dismissed, minimized, and ignored, but now the tables had turned. She wasn't pleading for acknowledgement, she was demanding it. "I have suffered lies, betrayal, and emotional abuse for too long," Meri declared, her tone calm but resolute. "I have attempted to forgive, stay calm, and keep this family together, but I will not be silenced anymore. Today I stand here not only for myself, but for every woman who has been ignored, belittled, or betrayed." The court fell silent, the gravity of her words settling in. There were uncomfortable looks exchanged among family members. Some refused to look at her, their faces filled with shame for the truth that could no longer be denied. Others spoke quietly among themselves, aware that power relationships in the family had been changed forever. Kody tried to say something, but Meri held up a hand, stopping him. "No more excuses, no more distractions. My pain will no longer be dismissed. This is about truth. This is about respect. This is about justice." The air in the room was thick with tension. The lawyers leaned forward, judges fidgeted with their papers, and the onlookers waited with bated breath. A single word, a single gesture, a single look was magnified by the tense environment. Meri had made the courtroom a stage of retribution, and all who waited knew that nothing would ever be the same again. As more witnesses testified, corroborating Meri's claims, Kody's defense struggled to maintain its footing. Each attempt to deflect, minimize, or challenge the evidence was met with calm, precise rebuttals. Meri's confidence grew with every word, every acknowledgement of the truth. She realized that her courage had created a ripple effect, forcing everyone in the room to confront realities they had long ignored. The judge stopped, visibly taken aback by Meri's calm and the extent to which her case had been prepared. "Meri Brown," he stated, "your bravery in bringing your evidence and testimony before this court is admirable. It is evident that you have suffered terribly, and the court respects your commitment to finding the truth." Relief and pride swept over Meri, but she stayed alert. She knew that this wasn't about recognition, it was about responsibility. She had traveled too far to let her voice be taken from her again. Every second, every word, every shred of proof had been a step toward taking back her life, and she wasn't going to let it end now. Family members shifted uncomfortably as the weight of Meri's revelations became undeniable. Some felt guilt, others fear, but all were aware that the balance of power had changed. The quiet, overlooked woman who had endured years of betrayal had become the center of attention, the holder of truth, and the embodiment of resilience. Meri's eyes met Kody's one last time. There was no anger, no malice, only clarity and strength. She had faced the darkest corners of her family life, revealed the hidden truths, and emerged stronger. This confrontation was not just a legal battle,
It was a declaration that she would no longer allow her life to be defined by betrayal or secrecy. As the session came to a close, the courtroom hummed with tension. The ground had been prepared, the secrets had been uncovered, and the emotional stakes had been laid out. Everyone knew that the third and final stage, the verdict, the final testament of justice, was at hand. The tension was agonizing, but thrilling. Meri had transmuted pain into strength, sorrow into resolve, and silence into an unmovable voice. She returned to her seat, head held high, for she knew that she had altered the destiny of her own life. The courtroom had seen her transformation, a subdued, suffering wife to a powerful woman calling for truth, respect, and justice. Today she had not just faced betrayal, but also let the world see that courage, integrity, and determination could alter all things. The courtroom was thick with expectation. Each whisper, each rustled paper, each peek toward the judge seemed amplified. For what felt like hours, the tension had been nearly intolerable. Now everyone awaited the gavel, waiting for the last word that would determine not just the legal verdict, but the emotional destiny of Meri Brown. Meri sat rigidly, hands folded tightly in her lap. Her heart thudded against her chest, a drumbeat of nerves, resolve, and hope. She had spilled years of heartache, betrayal, and pent-up frustration into this courtroom. Every tear, every sleepless night, every moment of silent agony had brought her to this place, and for the first time, she saw herself whole, not as a wife eclipsed by others, not as a victim of lies, but as a woman of conviction and courage. The judge's gavel finally came down, ringing out loudly throughout the chamber. The room fell silent like a dropped curtain, punctuated only by the judge's slow, measured voice. Having considered the evidence, the testimonies, and all the arguments brought before it, it is evident that Meri Brown has suffered extensive emotional and personal damage. The court recognizes her bravery in seeking the truth and her right to pursue justice. Mary's breath caught in her throat. Every eye in the courtroom seemed to focus on her, as if waiting for her reaction. The acknowledgement of her pain, the recognition of her strength, felt like a weight lifted from her shoulders. She had fought not just for herself, but for respect, for dignity, and for the truth. Meri Brown, this court finds in your favor, the judge went on. You are entitled to seek restitution, an acknowledgement for the emotional and personal damages incurred. In addition, the court stresses the importance of transparency, honesty, and respect in all family matters from now on. A tide of relief and victory flooded through Meri. Tears streamed down her face, but these soon were tears of strength, not desperation. She had triumphed. Not only had she received legal recognition, but she had reasserted herself, regained her voice and confidence, and her self-worth. All the betrayal she had suffered, all the nights without sleep, all the times she had questioned herself, had culminated in this triumph, and it was huge. Kody Brown sat quietly, visibly shaken. The charismatic, confident man who had long controlled the narrative now had to confront a reality he could not manipulate. Mary's courage had exposed the truth and changed the power dynamics forever. For the first time, he saw her not as a passive figure in his life, but as a formidable woman, with the strength to demand justice. Family members murmured among themselves, their faces a combination of shock, remorse, and introspection. The Brown family dynamic, which had been characterized by secrecy and emotional stratification, was now forever altered. Meri had demonstrated that honesty, strength, and respect for oneself could shatter the bonds of dishonesty and manipulation. As the courtroom started emptying out, Meri rose, her head high. Cameras followed her every step, recording the change of a woman who had suffered years of betrayal and came out on top. She exited with honor, leaving behind the constricting tension and the burden of injustices past. This was not just a court victory, it was a personal victory, a statement that she would never again be silenced or minimized. Outside of the courtroom, the sun was shining brightly, in contrast to the shadows of pain and doubt that she had carried for so long. For Meri, every step forward was symbolic, a step towards freedom, clarity, and a new chapter of her life. She had confronted the most painful moments of her past, met betrayal head-on, and was stronger, wiser, and more empowered than ever before.
Her win wasn't about her alone. It was a testament to all individuals who had been rejected, overlooked, or betrayed. It was evidence that courage, tenacity, and honesty could triumph even the most deplorable situation. Taking a deep breath and stepping out into the world outside the courtroom. Meri Brown realized that her tale would encourage others to stand up for themselves, to ask for justice, and to allow themselves to be strong. The flashbulb still popped, freezing the warmth of determination in her eyes. She smiled. A smile that uttered words of resilience, victory, and hope. The courtroom fight was over, but the legacy of courage would echo well beyond its confines. Meri had not just won a lawsuit. She had taken back her life. She had turned pain into power, heartbreak into purpose, and silence into a voice that could not be silenced. Today, Meri Brown was not just a reality TV personality. She was a beacon of strength, determination, and the unrelenting quest for justice. And as the crowd scattered, whispers of awe and respect trailed behind her. Folks could see what she had been through and what she had achieved. And as she emerged into sunlight, Meri understood that this was not the end but the beginning of a new chapter. One in which she owned her story, owned her dignity, and walked ahead with courage and confidence.